Hello there folks, back again for another video. This one, as you can tell by what you're seeing on the screen, is going to be about some fancy miniatures that I've found for using with the Middle-earth strategy battle game, and of course with a range of other games if you would prefer. So a little while ago I did a video looking at the different miniatures that you could find out there that could be used as alternatives to the range from Games Workshop, or potentially as ways to fill in gaps that you potentially find with that range in terms of making sure that you have enough models to fill in certain of the options from Games Workshop that just don't really exist anymore. They're just either not available anymore in metal, or they're in Finecast and you want something a little bit different, or you just don't particularly like the sculpts of them really. And I talked about a whole host of different providers who do stuff in that sphere, but one of the ones that I didn't really know about at that time is one that has been brought up in a range of different videos that I've been watching recently, and that is the stuff from Medbury Miniatures. So Medbury Miniatures have a My Mini Factory page where you can go and get your hands on a bunch of the sort of existing 3D printable files, as well as stuff their tribes and their patrons, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and you can download these and you can print them off at home. You use a 3D printer. You can either do that if you potentially have someone that you know, or if you have a fab lab or something as they call them nearby. These would be pretty handy. And 3D printers have come down a lot in cost over the last little while. I have not yet delved into the world of 3D printing, but it's certainly something that is pretty fascinating, and opens up some really interesting options for people who want to give them a shot. Without having to, get stuff shipped in. You can do it all at home, and you can print it up as many times as you like, which is kind of cool. So Medbury have kind of gone in and created lots of nice little stop gaps for stuff that exists out there, but they potentially, they enjoy, but also where they've found that ranges are lacking. And you can see a kind of breakdown in their collection here. So across the range, there's 183 objects over on their store, and that also equates to 179 individual elements on there as well, and that could be particular squads and all that kind of stuff. But as you can see here, this is a breakdown of their different collections, and we're going to have a look at those as well. They do historical miniatures, which are very, very nice. So if you're interested in, as you can see at the bottom, 11th century Britain, or if you want to potentially go down the route of playing around with the Scottish War of Independence and going medieval, then you can do that as well. But for the most part, we're going to be looking particularly here at the Middle-earth miniatures that they do as part of this collection. And as you can see, lots of nice options there for you to choose from. So one of the ones that, was the one that really sort of caught my eye, was the Dwarves of the Sapphire Ridge, which obviously works very nicely with the Blue Mountains, as you would guess, within Middle-earth, and where Thorin and co. came from before they went off on their expeditions to try and reclaim Erebor from Smaug. So as you can see, you've got a whole bunch of different options here for you to choose from. You've got a nice little pack here, which I think is really good for those people that want to kind of do your sort of like travelling brothers out there in the wilds. So if you want to do Murin and Dra, you have those options there, which I think is really nice, and it's a really nice little set that they've put together for that. And again, the look and feel of the miniatures is very in keeping with Tolkien, so it has this geometric patterns, very much ties in quite nicely with the look and feel of the stuff from The Hobbit and all that kind of stuff as well, which I think is quite nice. But a nice little set there as well. And you've got things like the Travelling Dwarf Lords. This could be your Thorin Oakenshield, for example, heading out to a battle on foot, or riding through the Shire towards Rivendell and beyond on the back of a pony. Maybe a pony that has been gifted by Beorn, potentially. And because it comes with the hood and cloak, you can do it in the proper nice way as well, so you can have him all cloaked up and ready for battle, which I think is quite nice. But as well as those kind of character models, they also do a whole host of sort of units as well. So you have, for example, here we've got some pretty nice sets. You've got your bowmen as well, which is always good. You've got your big shield teams, which is nice too. And other lots of different options there as well. So that was the brothers. But here, so we have a dwarven warrior unit, as you can see, which is looking quite nice, with a range of swords and spears and shields in there. So you get 3 of them in that set. So you get 3 models in that set, which is quite nice for $6, which is pretty good. Here's another set that breaks down with slightly more heavily armoured individuals. So you've got the kind of chainmail coif style design that covers the whole face and stuff, which is really nice. And it's just genuinely good design options, I think, for the dwarves that match up quite nicely with what's already available from Games Workshop. But also have something a little bit different about them as well. So you could mix them in, but you could also do something entirely based solely on their design, which I think is quite nice. Delete them as we go. So you've got your bowmen there as well, which are looking kind of cool. Like the look of those. I'm a big fan of bowmen in any game, to be honest. So having these as well is quite nice. As you can see, they have a sort of breakdown of it. So they're 25mm tall, but you can scale them down to match older ranges by reducing them by 10%. So there you go. Which I think is quite cool. So they've definitely thought about that. And the slightly more true proportions that you get with the range of Middle-earth models from Games Workshop, basically. So yeah, looking very nice. Some more as well. So here's your sort of shield team. So if you're going to be trying to reclaim Moria, send these in to keep trolls and dragons and all sorts of things at bay. Very nice, very cool design. Especially like the fact that the guy's calling back to his friend to take the troll down or something because he's fighting, which is really nice. Good stuff there. Here's your shield bearer. So if you're going to be introducing a shield bearer into a champion into your dwarven army, this would be a good option for that. Looking very nice with a very similar styled axe actually, which is really cool. So yeah, and as you get, one of the nice ones is this one. I really love the Doomed Dwarf Expedition. It's one of my favourite sets. Yeah, it's a nice little selection there actually. But yes, this one's my favourite. So this is, say you're actually going to go and try and reclaim Moria. This is the set that you want to go and pick up. So you've got Balin there and Nori going with him, and then a bunch of the other dwarves that came with them as well. I think there are names for all of them, or at least most of them, I think. Because I remember trying to build a little band of them using the Oathmark dwarves, I think. And yeah, it's a really nice little set, that one, the Doomed Dwarf Expeditionary Team. Very good if you're going to be doing battle companies, I think, because you could use that to have very nice, unique models within your group and then tailor them to fit, which I think would be really cool. So yeah, very nice stuff there if you are looking to reclaim your lost kingdom from dwarves and or Balrogs. The next that we're going to look at, so it's the Rising Sun Corsairs. So this is a good option if you are looking to bulk out your Corsairs of Umbar on the tabletop. As we looked at in our last video, where we were talking about the fact that you tend to, well, the Umbral force from Games Workshop is essentially just their plastic kit, but there are lots of different options for you to go beyond that. I mean, these are slightly more Numenorian in design, I would say, because of the scalloped armour and the way that they've done the headdresses and stuff, which mimics some of the armour that we've seen for Numenor in concept art and stuff online. But you could easily use these as styled as black Numenor, is potentially leading the way for your Corsairs of Umbar, which I think is quite a nice way to go. If you have any other thoughts about how you'd use these, then obviously make sure you dive in and tell me in the comments down below. Here's your character pack, so you could have him as a captain, you've got a banner bearer, and you could use him as a hornblower perhaps, even though he's swinging away on some ale. I think that'd be quite nice to go down that route, or a bit of rum. But a nice little characterful set for leading the way. And then you have your fellows with their scimitars at the ready, jumping off of boats to fight Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and the army of the dead, potentially. And raiding all of the coasts down in Gondor and beyond. I think it's quite cool. So yeah, so you've got your Rising Sun Corsairs there. There's even ranged options in there too, which is quite nice. So I'll get rid of those. So you've got your ranged options here with your crossbows and stuff as well. You've got another character pack and your boarding axes and stuff, which is kind of nice. And yeah, it's a nice little set for those people that want to kind of build up their Corsairs of Umbar without having to rely on Games Workshop making things made to order, essentially, and bringing back a lot of that metal range for you to play around with. Again, nice little set, which is really nice. And again, I think you do the same kind of scaling down, potentially, although I don't necessarily do. You also get the base toppers in there, which is good, because that plays around with the idea of them potentially wanting to fight around on decks and stuff, on ships. So if you wanted to really theme the force, you could do that. And again, perfect kind of stuff for battle companies. Next up, we're going to be looking at the Warriors of the Steppe. So if you wanted to go with canned, then you have some options here. Although, of course, obviously they name these in different ways, don't they? So that you don't work it out. So you've got one of the chariot kits, which I think is really nice. It's really well detailed as well, and a lot of the models that you see from Medbury, and we'll look at this later on in the video as well, actually come out looking very much like the renders. In some cases, they even look cleaner than the renders with a lot of their kits. And these are just great, and they help fill again the gap that's left by Games Workshop for canned. And you can play around with different weapon styles and stuff. I like that this one sort of takes them. There's almost like a Chinese feel, an ancient Chinese feel to canned, but I think that this also plays around with a lot more of that samurai aesthetic as well, that you tend to see in some of the miniatures that were designed by Games Workshop, but this kind of takes it to the next level, which I think is really cool. So you've got Chinese style weapons, but then with these back banners that very much remind me of Japanese Ashigaru and stuff on the tabletop, which is kind of cool. Here's your Great Khan leading the way, charging into battle. Looking very nice indeed. And a foot and mounted version, which is always handy because it means that when they're being used on the tabletop, you're not going to get caught out, which is always good. And here's some of the Keshig, the canned horse archers as well, drawing their bows and fighting away in combat and stuff. So yeah, a really nice little range there too. Bit bigger than the... oh no, it's probably about the same size as the Rising Sun collection, so it's not too bad there. And a nice option for those people who want to build up canned and sort of embrace the idea of doing a lot more flavourful evil faction on the tabletop. Next we have Wildmen, Vagabonds and Ruffians, which is all classic fantasy as well. So if you are someone who wants to get their hands on Dunlendings, but you don't fancy having to pay out of the nose for your models, you can get yourself some Wildmen done in a similar style. You could always do the same thing with something like Victrix Vikings, for example, and they are a pretty good match for the metal Dunlendings by Games Workshop. I think these are really nice too, and they have slightly more heroic proportions about them, as do the Victrix models. Actually, they've got slightly bigger hands and stuff, so they kind of work with what you want for fantasy models. But a nice little set of chieftains there. Here's your Wildman Warriors, which is a nice set. Comes with axes and shields and all that kind of good stuff. And then you have your horsemen as well. So if you wanted to bulk out your force to follow the forces of Isengard on the tabletop, you have some nice options for that. Good stuff. Using tropes from Vikings and Saxons, which is always nice. Very good to go. Sticking with evil stuff, we also have orcs and goblins in the high fantasy style. The reason why I particularly like these is because, as well as having some really nice sets that could be used across the board, they've gone down the route of creating miniatures that have something of the Hobbit style to them, especially with things like the wargs and stuff. But also, it's the addition of things like the hoods and cloaks. So if you really liked the aesthetic of the stuff from Rings of Power, these are really nice miniatures to come and pick up, I think personally. Because I think they've done a really good job of designing miniatures that fit that aesthetic. So if you wanted to go down the route doing them with pale animal skins or, pale cloth and tunics and stuff, these are a very good fit for that, I think. But also work perfectly well if you wanted to go down the route of using them to match a bunch of stuff for both orcs and Uruk-hai in many regards. Like, I think these could work very nicely as Uruk-hai scouts, obviously, on the tabletop, which is always good. Here's some more of their orc warriors with their shattered shields, which I think are really nice. That helmet obviously reminds me very much of doing kind of like an Uruk-hai style thing on the tabletop. But obviously these could be used as Morannons if you wanted to. Slightly more veteran troops on the tabletop, which is a good way to go. Your wargs for your warg hunters. So if you wanted to go down the route of building up, the wolves of Isengard, then you can do that, which I think is quite a nice little step. And again, good little wolf models as well for these sets, which is always nice. But yeah, some really good orcs and goblins that could find their way into many different forces, because a lot of the stuff for evil in the Middle-earth strategy pack game tends to find its way, into various armies by way of the fact that all of evil essentially is fighting on the same side. So you could find a use for a lot of those in your collections, I think. Moving on to some more of the good stuff. So we have the Grey Elves of Grindalas. So you could use these for, in my opinion, a whole host of different elven armies. I think they kind of go down the route of being a little more Galadrim potentially in their design. So he could be very much like a Haldir, fighting it out on the tabletop. Very nice style of sword as well. I absolutely love that. It's really cool. But yeah, so I think he'd be a very good Haldir model. And I'm sure some people will be like, this would be perfect for him. It fits really nicely with his designs and stuff. Here's your kind of Thranduil style character. I think it would be cool to, I think it would be right to say, with his dual swords. I think as much as I quite like the version of him that Lee Pace plays, with his kind of armor and his elven things, I think this is much nicer design with the elven, with the kind of the leaf crown that he has on there. And I like the design of the armor as well, kind of going with that leaf motif throughout, which is always nice. And he matches more with the idea of him that I have from the old version of Thranduil, which I really liked. That got obviously replaced by the Hobbit version of him. But I think it's a really nice little miniature, that one. Here are some of your archers. Protecting their realm from encroaching orc enemies with really cool bows. Bit thick, but, heroic proportions and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want things to break when you're 3D printing them. Again, going down a little bit more of that sort of Galadrim court kind of thing. You've got your armoured warriors there, charging forth from the realms to do battle. Here's your Warden of the Gwyrdelas, which is another awesome looking model there. Could be used as a whole host of different characters if you wanted him to. Just drop him in and away you go, really. Very nice stuff there. If you have any ideas of who these characters, who you would play with these characters, then obviously please let me know in the comments down below, because I always like hearing your thoughts. But yeah, a nice little section of elves there. One of the things that's really nice about the Medbury stuff is it covers a lot of the basics. So you have a lot of your kind of rank and file troops, and then you have your heroes that you'd need. So you'd need your musicians, your banner bearers, that kind of thing. So you can make a very core force out of these, and then maybe throw in some of the official models as well, just to take them to that next level. But a genuinely nice little section of options there for your elves. You also then have, and this is probably one of my favourite sets. It's the kind of well, they've called it the Alnadine, haven't they, here? But this is very much your kind of Arnor. And Arnor is one of those factions that is almost impossible to get your hands on. But obviously these would be really fun to pick up and use in your games. Because Arnor is a really fun and interesting faction in terms of the lore and kind of the basis of how they all came to be, really. So, using these on the tabletop, I think you get away with dropping these into many tournaments, really. Obviously, you couldn't use any of these, really, in your official Games Workshop tournaments, so you couldn't take these to Warhammer World or anything like that, probably, unless you were very sneaky. But for a majority of the Middle-earth tournaments that are held up there, I think in most cases, I know this is definitely the case, because I think Conquest Creations always said that a lot of the Australian tournaments, and even the ones that they run, they tend to just sort of accept a lot of different models, as long as you're not taking the mickey or anything. But I think most of the UK ones also do the same. But obviously check with your tournament organiser before you start bringing along miniatures that aren't official Games Workshop ones. Here's your banner bearer and your sort of musician as well, that you can use in place of your hornblower, and some more foot troops. And then they've done your standard spearman as well, that you tend to see a lot with Arnor, done in a very nice style, using that kind of amazing helmet. Is it Sally helm? I think it is. It's a very cool one, but I love the kind of twisted fabric around the top of the helmets that you get with the Arnor stuff. And this is just a great option, because if you're 3D printing this yourself, you're paying $15 to essentially endlessly do this kit of spearmen, so you can build up a fairly good force. But because Middle-earth doesn't necessarily need you to have a lot of models anyway, I think this is a great way to go if you have access to a 3D printer. So yeah, really good stuff there for their kind of Arnor-esque collection. They've also kind of got this set of that could be very good if you're going down the route of making... now I know this is very kind of like Robin Hood, but I think this is really good if you want to do kind of Aragorn and his Rangers of the North, almost. because you have the Exiled Noble here, which is a superb model. Really like the kind of look of him. Imagine him stalking towards you on the tabletop, sword drawn. I like that he's got all the bits and pieces. He's got his kit with him, as you'd imagine, which is nice to see. A very dark and brooding individual. A Strider, perhaps. You also have your standard outlaws as well here as well. So again, would be really nice as your company of rangers heading down from the north. You've got a lot of spears in there, which is always nice, because a lot of the miniatures tend to come with spears in their profiles if you pay for them and stuff. And you've got your bowmen too. So if you're defending the borders of the Shire, maybe these outlaws would be a pretty good option. Here's their Amriel as well, so if you wanted to throw him into the mix. You've got him there, foot and mounted. Again, a cool kind of like Aragorn spin-off, or if you wanted to do Halbarad or something, you could use either him or him as kind of like Halbarad. I think that would work quite nicely. Or you could do an Aragorn and an Arathorn if you wanted to, and have Amriel as the younger version of him. I think that'd be quite a nice one to go with. More of your armoured outlaws as well. So some more rangers to use on the tabletop. You maybe use these as your rangers of the north, and then the kind of standard Dunedain. Well, sorry, use these as your Dunedain, and then the other ones as your rangers. I think would be a quite nice way to go, because they're better kit would put them more in the look of your Dunedain. I think on the tabletop, I think that would work out quite nicely. But yeah, very good stuff there as well. He has some more for the Kingdoms of Men, which would be pretty good if you were going to be making Gondorians on the tabletop. Also, you know, they've got a kind of look and feel to them of your sort of classic Robin Hood style stuff as well, if you want to go that. So that's your kind of like Swan Knights and stuff. So if you wanted to go down, if you wanted to have them as, I've forgotten his name. What's his name? Prince Imrahil is his name. There you go. There's your Prince Imrahil to use on the tabletop, which is quite cool. Clansman Noble, if you want to do the Clansman of Lossarnach. Here's some more of your kind of like fiefdoms stuff, if you wanted to use them on the tabletop. So you could use him as like Fall on the Fat, would be a good option for him, perhaps. You've got a foot-mounted version of him. And then your Clansman of Lossarnach with their big swords at the ready. And you don't know what's up those kilts, do ya? But a really nice little set of bearded individuals for fighting it out with Gondor's own and the kingdoms of the fiefdoms around them. It's a pretty nice set. Last but kind of, well, not least, I suppose, we have this set, which I think is really nice. So if you are going to try and play out a little bit of Rohan on the tabletop, then I think these are a pretty darn good match for you, as you'll see by some of the designs in here. So I'll go through these. So here's your King Hrothgar, which could be used as your Theoden on the tabletop. Again, I really like that Medbury ties in a lot of kind of folklore and fantasy, but also with the historic. So if you want to go down the route of kind of really imbuing that sort of Beowulf energy to things, this is the way to go. So if you wanted to fight as King Hrothgar of Hrothgar, then you could use him on the tabletop in both armoured and unarmoured forms, mounted and dismounted as well. I think this is my favourite of the models, but I kind of like that unarmoured version of him, which is interesting. But it's a really nice little set of models that would be very good for playing as King Theoden on the tabletop. You also have Aldin here, who could be used within your set, your army as well. Little tiny fellow with his bow and stuff at the ready. Probably going to get overrun somewhere in a castle, but a nice little fun kit that I think builds up the kind of narrative in your collection, which is always good to see. You also have Beowulf here. Now I see Beowulf being done potentially as either your own take on Theoden, perhaps, but I really like him as kind of your Helm Hammerhand, defending the fortress against the massed forces of the Easterlings and the Harad and the wild men and stuff battering at the gates. I think Beowulf would be a really good option for sort of going back in time and playing out the period under Helm, and you know, turning the fortress into the fortress that it is today in Middle-earth in the Third Age as well. So a really nice little set there with Beowulf at the head. Very cool model. And here's the kind of like proper Rohan stuff. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money on playing your Royal Guard, then you can pick up your Huskarls in sort of 3D printed form here, as you can see. And it's a nice little set for having them on foot guarding you on the tabletop. And then you have different versions of them on horseback as well. So you've got the slightly more regular folk, and then you do have, so you've got the Huskarls there, and then you've got the Huskarls there as well. So you do have mounted and foot versions of them. Just got to buy the 2 sets. And then you have banner bearers and everything else in between as well. And a really good way for you to build up fun and interesting Rohan forces that could be used for that sort of back in kind of like the early Third Age, or maybe and that kind of stuff, through to the late Third Age as well. So a very nice little set there. Last but not least, we have the Classic Elf Lord, which is from the Classic Elves collection, which there isn't too much to it, but I think if you're going to be doing a First Age elf, this would be a pretty good way to go. Use him as a variety of your elven heroes from back in the the First Age, I reckon, and he'd be a shoe-in for something Silmarillion in in look and feel. So dropping him into your armies, and away you go. A perfect way to lead an Oathmark force done in the First Stage style for the Silmarillion, as I've talked about in another video. But yeah, very good. So your Elven Lord, very good indeed. So there we go. So yes, Medbury Miniatures. They have this big collection of stuff that you can 3D print and get your hands on, as you can see. But if you don't have access to a 3D printer, there are a selection of merchant printers. So these people who have built, taken a merchant license with Medbury, so you can get your hands on these miniatures without having to go down the route of 3D printing them yourself. I think one of the ones that a lot of people use is Forge Master Miniatures, which is available in Europe. Although, as you can see here, they've broken them down for the United States and Canada, the United Kingdom. Although some of these are out of stock, and then you have Europe here, which obviously then helps out with everything else. Although this says United Kingdom, and then this one is particularly Britain down here, so bear that in mind. So Forge Master Miniatures here, which is from the UK, which is really nice, fantastic stuff here. They have a whole bunch of pre-printed stuff. Now this will obviously go through cycles of them having access to this stuff, but if you were looking to get your hands on pretty much anything from the Medbury Miniatures collection, it is all here. And to give you an idea of just how good these are when they come out, I mean, I think this is a fairly good way of showing the quality of the stuff that they do. Let's find some more of my favourites. They've got the Hooded Orc Warriors there. You've got your Armoured Half-Trolls. Oh, they're so good. Really awesome stuff. And there's loads of pages of this for you to go through. I'm just going to keep scrolling through and see if I find some of the ones that I like. So there's the Elven King on mount, but with the elk version, which I think is quite nice. Let's see if I can find some more that I like. Here we go. The Adventuring Dwarven Brothers. The Outlawed King. Do they have the Dwarves of the Sapphire Ridge Army Bundle? Very nice. And then here we go, onto the 4th page. Here's some of their cool stuff as well. I can't remember where the Doomed Dwarf Expedition is. Was it on the front page? There it is. Ha 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 ha. So yeah. So you've got your Dwarf Champion and the Heralds of the Sapphire Ridge. So if you're putting together a King's Champion and his Shield Bearers, you've got them. Again, amazing 3D prints, these. Genuinely lovely. And they've all been printed off as well. So miniatures are provided fully professionally washed, fully cured, and the majority of the supports removed. So all you have to do is clean them up a little bit extra, and then they are provided to you at your door. A Wood Elf bundle here, so if you're going to be playing out your Wood Elves, you've got all of those options there. So you could go down the route of doing Lorien, or you could go down the route of, Lothlorien, or you could go down the route of doing Mirkwood with Thranduil at the head, which is quite nice. So a good section of options there. There he is, on his mount with the elk head. Although you can change the options there, or moose as they say, sorry. Here's your Dwarven Adventuring Buddies. So there's your Murren and Dra. Very good. Look at the detail and the way that the chainmails come out. It's just lovely. There's your Outlaw King, your Exiled Noble, your Dwarves of the Sapphire Ridge Mega Bundle, which comes with a champion and a bunch of other models for you to build up a good little warband on the tabletop. And you can have it in standard definition or you can have it in ultra. And there's not a massive difference between the two with this one. And you get a good set of dwarves for you to level up. And there's your Doomed Expedition. And this gives you an idea of the standard and ultra. So standard has a little bit more of the graininess about it. I probably would just go for ultra, I think, with these. Let's see what happens if you put it both on ultra. And you want to do it at 28mm. So yeah. So you can switch it between having them in Heroic 32, which would be handy for a bunch of different games, or 28mm if you want to use them alongside the stuff that exists previously with Games Workshop. So yeah, very nice. Scale, other scales are available, which is nice there, and you can find some more details and all of that stuff there. But yeah, if you're looking for a merchant that already sells these without you having to go down the route of well, essentially getting a 3D printer and printing them off yourself, or telling a friend to do it and having all the mistakes, you can either come and check out the stuff here, or just go onto Etsy and type in Medbury Miniatures, and you'll be able to find these legitimate merchants for Medbury with all the bells and whistles. If you are interested in their stuff and you want to know more, you can go and check out things like their Patreon here. So their Patreon is something you can sign up to every month, and you'll get your hands on a whole host of miniatures for a little bit cheaper than normal. And also January's set of releases is a whole host of different things. So you have your Dwarven sort of tavern owner, you have your sort of Grima Wormtongue in the background there. And then because they wanted to go down the route of doing something a little bit more evil, you have your kind of Urukai style orcs. This is probably good. So you've got your Urukai style orcs here with a range of different weapons with those classic Urukai style shields that you've seen in the movies. And then you have more of your classic wild men of Dunland. So if you don't want to go down the route of doing proper Dunlendings, you can have your kind of messy peasants and savage fellows from beyond the borders of Rohan, marauding their way through Rohan's country and burning things as they go. So yeah, make sure to go and check out things like their Patreon. I'm going to have all the links for Medbury Miniatures down below, so if you like what they do, make sure to go and check them out and see what you think. As you can see, they have a huge selection of different offerings, both 3D printed and through merchants, as we found on Forge Master here. There's 4 pages of the stuff for you to have a look at. It's a genuinely nice selection of stuff, and very, very good for keeping the aesthetic look and feel of Middle-earth between your official collection from Games Workshop and also then looking at what Medbury do here as well. So I think it's really worth having a look at what they provide for you. If you want to come and have a look at some of the stuff that's been painted by other people, make sure you check out Medbury Miniatures over on Instagram. I might again pop this in so you can come and have a look at it. So you've got some really nice stuff here. Steve B Paints has done some astonishingly good stuff from Medbury's range, and I really like what they do. I mean, here's the Doomed Expedition painted up amazingly well, and just look how good those are. Even I said so tempted by these. But yeah, genuinely awesome and well worth having a look at. If you are interested in expanding your Middle-earth collection, go and check out the stuff from Medbury and tell me what you think. So yeah, this is not sponsored or anything, by the way, because they don't know me from Adam. But I really like what Medbury do. And if there's anything that makes it easier for you to build up your Middle-earth collections, rather than having to rely on eBay or looking further afield, or just waiting for made-to-order stuff to come up, I will help you out in that regard. So this is a good sort of additional addendum almost to what I did with the previous video, which you can go and watch. There'll be some end cards for you to go and check out for that one, so go and have a look at that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this sort of look at what Medbury produces, and hopefully it was very helpful for you. Maybe you're going to be printing these off at home, or getting someone else to do it, or getting some for yourself from merchants and the like. As I say, yeah, really nice collection. As always, if you could like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff in the comments, that is fantastic. Liking and sharing is really good because it's awesome to see the channel grow and more people come in and do their comments and that kind of thing. Commenting is also really fun, and I love responding to you guys and having a little bit of a dialogue about what you like and what you don't like and all that kind of stuff. There is also a Ko-fi link down in the description, so if you fancy giving me a little bit of extra moolah, you don't have to do this at all, but if you fancy giving me an extra bit of moolah that I can spend on teas and coffees and potentially some hobby supplies, then please feel free to do so. But as I say, the main thing is just liking, sharing, and most importantly, just commenting, because I really like the little tiny community of people that we've built up here, and people who comment regularly and stuff like that. It's been really fun, and I always like seeing people pop up again like, oh man, I really love the Middle-earth strategy battle game. This has kind of, you know, inspired me to come and give it another go or anything like that, and that's just amazing, because it is genuinely the best game that I think Games Workshop have ever made. Although Blood Bowl's a close second, I guess. But yeah, cool. Medbury Miniatures. Go and check them out. I'm going to look off screen because we've already been going for just over half an hour. Oh my god. Yeah, tell me what you think down in the comments down below, and do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Bye.